All right, Carlos Alcaraz back on top. The kid has defended his title in Indian Wells in pretty dominant fashion, taking out Daniil Medvedev, and I would say reminding everyone that he hasn't gone anywhere. He's 20 years old, and yes, this is his first title since Wimbledon of last year. Yes, this was his first final since Cincinnati of last year, but the kid is just way too special to go any longer without winning a big title, beating two of the top four players in the world en route, which he has done here at Indian Wells. So we're going to break down Carlos's win here at the BNP Paribas Open, talk about what it means for his current place in the status of men's tennis, and we're going to break down what happened in today's match. Thanks for being here. Let's get into it. Well, what a performance. What a performance from young Carlos Alcaraz. A month ago, he had rolled his ankle, and we weren't even sure if he was going to play here. And today, he wins the tournament, getting back to the top of men's tennis, in my opinion. If you have not yet, thanks for subscribing. Welcome to The Slice. If you're new here, I'm Stephen Boughton. I'm the host of The Slice. I'm from Canada, and we love talking about pro tennis on this channel. So thanks for subscribing. And Carlos Alcaraz takes out Medvedev today in the match. It was an interesting match. There were some points with the stats looking afterwards that show how interesting the Indian Wells court is compared to other hard courts. And that kind of accentuated some problems in this matchup if you're Daniil Medvedev. But overall, in this tournament, we saw Carlos Alcaraz, like I said, come back from injury. In his acceptance speech after winning, he said, he had his doubts at the beginning of this tournament if he could play. He said that he didn't even practice with a racket for the first time on court here in Indian Wells. He just did some movement for like 30 minutes and called it a day. But as the tournament went along, he felt more and more confident in his body and with his game. And then obviously he takes out Sinner. Then he takes out Daniil Medvedev, two of the core four, as I would say, Sinner being the hottest player on tour. And Daniil being a great player who's a tough out. But it's the second time that Alcaraz has beaten Daniil Medvedev here at Indian Wells. And if you're Daniil Medvedev, you got to be getting a little sick of that. So what happened in today's match? Daniil Medvedev jumps out to a 0-3 lead or 3-0 lead. And coming into this, what we've seen Medvedev do against Sinner and Alcaraz in the last few matches is be super aggressive. Serving big, he has to serve big, playing great behind that, but then going for winners from the baseline, which is a bit different of a play style than he's implemented against Djokovic when he's had success in the past. He's kind of slow-balled him, played more counter-punching, but against Alcaraz and Sinner, who hit the ball bigger than he does, he feels he needs to get on the front foot and be more attacking, and that worked at the U.S. Open when Medvedev beat Alcaraz. But today, it kind of worked for the first three games. Alcaraz was not hitting his shots. He was spraying a bit, wasn't settled. Medvedev was standing up on the baseline, returning a bit closer and having success for that. But after a few games, Alcaraz holds. Then he immediately starts to get into the Medvedev service games, finding his game, being able to get more returns back in. And once they got in the rallies, kind of assert his heaviness onto this court with these balls. And that was able to get Medvedev back off the baseline a bit. And then you really saw how much more options Carlos Alcaraz has in his game to hurt somebody on a court like this than Medvedev does in this matchup. Carlos can come to the net, chop it off. He's running around the court. He felt like he started to play really loose in this match, especially in the second set. It was kind of like party time for Alcaraz, where you just felt like there was no chance for Medvedev to come back in the match. So yeah, the first set was 7-6 in a tiebreaker, but since Medvedev went up 3-0, Alcaraz won 7 of the last 10 games in the set. So it really was kind of deceiving for how close that set was. And then the 6-1 second set was kind of a good representation of the level on this day. Medvedev didn't have his best serving, and we're going to get into that in a sec. But Alcaraz, it doesn't really matter on a court like this. It affects the serve, and Alcaraz just had more options. Was able to just get the ball back many times, and then once the ball was in play, he just had a big advantage from a rally standpoint and from a all-court game standpoint. If we're looking at the stats from the match here, Just in today, total first serve points won, 75% for Carlos Alcaraz to 63 for Daniil, 63. 68% second serve points won for Carlos Alcaraz to 45 for Daniil. So really service domination from Carlos Alcaraz. Only 3 aces for Daniil. So that's pretty interesting. I tweeted out before this show, Daniil Medvedev only won 63% of his first serve points today against Carlos Alcaraz. In his last 20 matches, he's only done worse than that one time, which was yesterday against Tommy Paul. He won only 59% of his first serve. That's first serve, one of the biggest, best servers on tour. That's pretty crazy. So to me, mind you, those stats, that stat is from Tennis Abstract. Shout out for Tennis Abstract. So that shows to me the slowness of the balls, the grittiness of the court really affect even the serve from a guy like Daniil Medvedev. And playing a guy against guys like Tommy Paul and Carlos Alcaraz, who have such good hands and are such amazing athletes, it really hurts your ability to get free points and win easily on your first serve. So that's pretty crazy. And it was hilarious to see Daniil even say to Tommy Haas, the tournament director at Indy Wells, he said, "I love coming here, but it's hard to play with these balls and this court." So kind of dunking on the court. And obviously the balls have been an issue of controversy on the ATP tour. But that's, to me, a pretty interesting effect of the slowness of the conditions here in Indy Wells on a serve like Daniil Medvedev. Maybe he didn't have his best serving in general, but you could tell that he was not getting the same effect off of his first serve that he has previously. A lot of that has to do with the returning of Alcaraz and Tommy Paul, both great players. But out of the last 20 matches, these were his 2 worst serving performances in the semifinal and final of Indy Wells. Pretty interesting stuff, if you ask me. So the story, Carlos Alcaraz, this was his first title since Wimbledon of 2023, like 9 months, basically, I think, maybe 8. But that's pretty big. And that was his first final since Cincinnati. So a lot of people were saying, what's happening to Carlos? And what was happening to Carlos is he was taking a lot of losses against top players. In the Canadian Open, he won, or he lost to Tommy Paul. In Cincinnati, he lost in the final to Djokovic. That was a big one. People think that hurt his mojo, which it may have. He lost in the U.S. Open semifinals to Medvedev. He lost in China to Sinner, and then he lost in Shanghai to Dimitrov, in Paris to Safulin, to Djokovic in the ATP World Finals after beating Medvedev and Rublev, but losing to Zverev. In the Australian Open, he lost to Zverev. So he's taken a lot of losses, but that's kind of been, we've seen that happen to him before. He'll play a few months where he's unstoppable, and then he'll kind of lose a few months he's unstoppable, he'll lose a few. The kid's 20. I mean, what do you expect? He's going to win every single tournament. I think in the current context of the ATP Tour, we've got the core 4, Djokovic, Alcaraz, Sinner, Medvedev. You're not going to win every tournament. Really, winning 1 tournament every 4 now would be really, really good. That would be insane. So yes, I think Alcaraz is going to win more tournaments in the next couple months here for sure, going into Miami as the favorite, I would say. And then the clay swing, he's got to be the favorite. And then at Wimbledon, he's the defending champion, so he can play on grass. I mean, he can win every tournament he plays, let's be honest. But it's really not going to be, again, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. These guys have like ruined our perception of what dominance in tennis is. It's not going to look like that. And I hope it doesn't, because I hope Sinner and Medvedev and Felix Auger-Aliassime and all these other players that are young and Zverev and Tsitsipas can really have a super competitive top end of the tour, because that is super interesting. But don't get it twisted what I'm saying. I think Carlos Alcaraz, when he's playing his best and when he's playing like he did today, is the best player in the world. But Sinner and Medvedev and Djokovic are right there. So it's not domination station coming up. So we got to be aware of that. But this is a big momentum win for Alcaraz, I think, for sure. Because like we said, he rolled his ankle. He was down bad a month ago. Coming into this tournament, he's able to win, get his first title in a while. He's going to carry that into Miami. He's going to be a tough guy to play over these next few months for sure. And he might have just got his mojo back. So beware the mojo the mojo Alcaraz. You don't want him feeling himself having a swagger back if you're an opponent. But it's great to see as a fan of the game. And that was a great performance from him today. So congrats to Alcaraz. Congrats to the Carlitos fandom. And we will see you guys in Miami. That's going to be a big event. Let me know what your thoughts was on Alcaraz's performance. Let me know what your thoughts were on Daniil Medvedev's serving performance and his thoughts on the court conditions. Interesting stuff. Let me know below. We'll see you guys next time here on the